being one of the world's greatest art thieves.
Do you?
The new trailer for The Gentleman Thief gives us a longer look at Travolta's return as Mason Goddard, a veteran thief who just wants to stay retired. But because this is an action crime thriller, retirement lasts about as long as a villain's good decision. What makes this interesting is not only the movie itself, but where it sits in Travolta's career. Action cinema has always loved its larger-than-life figures. We have had the one-man armies like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, and Jean-Claude Van Damme. We have had the more grounded, battered everyman heroes like Bruce Willis, Harrison Ford, Keanu Reeves, and even Bob Odenkirk. And in the 1990s, Travolta carved out his own very specific lane when he teamed with John Woo for Broken Arrow and then Face Off. The Gentleman Thief is the third chapter in the Mason Goddard trilogy. Following Cash Out in 2024 and High Rollers in 2025, these films have not been huge theatrical events. They have not dominated the cultural conversation. They have moved more like old-school direct-to-video action movies upgraded for the digital age. Shot, finished, and released quickly. They exist in that space where a recognizable star, a familiar genre setup, and a simple promise of low-friction entertainment are supposed to do the heavy lifting. The story brings Mason Goddard out of a comfortable retirement when his impulsive brother Sean pulls him into one last high-stakes job. The target is a $100 million painting sitting aboard a luxury yacht in Miami that is already a good heist setup. It has wealth, pressure, ego, and the kind of location where everyone looks too expensive to trust. But of course, the job does not stay clean. The robbery turns into a deadly trap set by a ruthless crime boss with revenge on his mind. That is where the trailer shifts from elegant theft to violent survival. Mason is no longer just trying to steal a painting. He is trying to outmaneuver law enforcement, survive a criminal setup, protect his thrown-together crew, and stay one step ahead of people who clearly want him buried before the credits roll. The footage leans into that old-school rhythm: sleek suits, armed men, boats, nightclubs, expensive rooms, sudden gunfire, and a hero who looks calm until it is time to start breaking things. Travolta is joined by a surprisingly busy cast. Lukas Haas, Rebecca De Mornay, Sam Asghari, Quavo, and DJ Khaled all appear, giving the movie a mix of actors, celebrity energy, and crime movie texture. The cast list alone tells you this is aiming for a glossy, slightly exaggerated Miami underworld vibe. It is not trying to be Heat. It is trying to be a digital-era crime caper with enough recognizable faces to make people stop scrolling. Randall Emmett directs the film, and that will probably be part of the conversation too. The previous installments were not critical darlings. Cash Out was hit hard by critics and audiences, while High Rollers still struggled with reviewers but found a much more forgiving audience response. That audience reaction matters because this trilogy seems built less for critics and more for viewers who already know what they are clicking on. They want Travolta, a heist, a little chaos, and a runtime that does not ask for a thesis afterward. The new trailer suggests The Gentleman Thief may be leaning harder into final chapter energy. Mason has old enemies, unfinished business, and one last chance to walk away for good. He also reunites with Odessa, an old flame who helps him infiltrate the criminal empire of his longtime rival Salzar. That kind of setup gives the movie more emotional texture than a simple steal-the-painting plot. It is not just about the job. It is about whether Mason can finally escape the life that keeps dragging him back. The release strategy is also worth paying attention to. The Gentleman Thief is set to arrive on digital and video on demand on July 28, 2026, followed by a limited theatrical release on July 31st that basically tells us how the distributor sees the movie. The main audience will likely find it at home, not in a crowded multiplex. The theatrical run may be short and selective, more like a visibility boost than a traditional wide release. That is not necessarily a weakness. The action market has changed. Movies that might have once lived on cable, DVD shelves, or late-night rentals now live on digital platforms and VOD charts. A recognizable face like Travolta still has value there. The question is whether audiences feel the movie gives them enough of that old 90s action flavor to make it stand out from the endless list of disposable crime thrillers fighting for attention. I also think the Travolta angle is more interesting now because he has recently been moving in different creative directions. After making his feature directing debut with Propeller One-Way Netcoach at the 2026 Cannes Film Festival, he is not only functioning as an actor trying to keep an action franchise going, he is also a filmmaker exploring passion projects. So The Gentleman Thief may mark the end of this particular role and a chance for him to move toward the next phase of his career that gives the movie a cleaner sense of closure. Mason Goddard gets pulled out of retirement for one last dangerous job, and Travolta may be stepping away from this character at the same time. If the film understands the parallel, it could make the finale feel more satisfying, even if the series has never been a major blockbuster player. Of course, expectations should stay realistic. The first two movies were not treated like hidden masterpieces. Cash outscored poorly with both critics and audiences, while High Rollers managed a much stronger audience score despite weak reviews. That means The Gentleman Thief is not arriving as the final chapter of a beloved global saga. It is arriving as the third swing in a compact action crime trilogy that may have more appeal to Travolta loyalists and VOD action fans than to the mainstream crowd. But that does not mean it cannot work. Sometimes a franchise finds its most confident rhythm at the end. If The Gentleman Thief tightens the pacing, gives Mason a stronger emotional stake, makes good use of the yacht heist setup, and delivers clean action instead of noise, it could become the most enjoyable entry of the three. It does not need to reinvent the genre. It just needs to be sharper than expected, and there is something oddly comforting about a movie like this. In an era where so many franchises are drowning in multiverse rules, cinematic timelines, and homework, The Gentleman Thief looks refreshingly simple. A retired thief, a reckless brother, a priceless painting, a yacht, a trap, a crime boss, a final score. That is not complicated, and sometimes uncomplicated is exactly what the action genre needs. The Gentleman Thief arrives digitally and on VOD on July 28, 2026. Before a limited theatrical release on July 31st, I want to know where you stand on this one. Are you here for Travolta returning to heist action mode, or do you think this trilogy has already flown too far under the radar to make a real final impact? Either way, Mason Goddard is getting one last job, one last trap, and maybe one last chance to walk away clean. In crime movies, that almost never happens, but watching the attempt is half the fun.